So this is pretty interesting. Ana Kasparian was on CNN's Chris Cuomo show just a couple of days ago. Now, I always give credit to my boy Chris because whatever opinion you have of him, he has progressives on. He has Ana Kasparian on a bunch of times. He's had on Cenk Uygur a bunch of times. So you do have to give credit where credit is due to Chris. Now, she's come on again to talk about the altercation that has occurred between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren with the whole handshake thing. The audio has been unearthed at this point, although I think that came out after this. Or no, it was here, as you can see by the bar there. But I am going to let this play through, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Liar on national TV?
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that
Anytime.
discussion. You called me.
All right, let's discuss. Why am I laughing? Because, Bernie is Bernie. Now, the question is, was he being truthful up there? Was Senator Warren? What does this mean? Ana Kasparian, who backs Senator Bernie Sanders. Angela Rye. Angela, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren told her, I don't think a woman can run. I don't think she can win, rather. Okay? She says that's what he said. He says, I never said that. It would be ludicrous for that to be suggested. Is Elizabeth Warren right to say to him afterwards, you called me a liar on national TV?
Well, it sounds like she said, did you call me a liar on national TV? And
she said, I think you called me a liar.
That's true.
On
You're right.
national
Fact
TV.
check me. Fact check me, moderator. Fact check me. You're right.
Go ahead.
I think the reality of it is it still sounded like a question, right? There was an inflection at the end of her statement. So maybe we can find a middle point there. I think the reality of it is Elizabeth Warren certainly believes that is what she heard in the meeting with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders certainly believes that's not what he said. I think the reality of this is that we are spending a lot of time talking about something that happened. None of us were in the room for. It is horribly unfortunate if Bernie Sanders said this. It is also horribly unfortunate if we continue to spend time on this. It is something they have to personally reconcile. I said this on Don's show the other day, and that is, a few months ago, I did a podcast with Elizabeth Warren, asked her about what distinguishes her from Bernie Sanders, and she refused to answer the question because of their relationship. If they're going to let their relationship not be divided on policy, which is absolutely what the debate stage should be for, it certainly should not be about this conversation because she joined the race anyway, and we know, as we all have talked about, that Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote.
No
so
question
it's not
about
true
it.
Even if he believes
and
it.
she whooped Bernie Sanders also. You can argue about the process, but clearly a woman got tons of support both in party and in this country. And also, I agree with your analysis step for step about its importance. Anna, here's why it matters to me. Okay?
Yeah.
Truth.
Can I just note one quick thing?
Go ahead,
I
and then
agree
you can
with a
answer
lot
my
of
question.
what.
Go ahead.
Sure, of course. I agree with a lot of what Angela said, but I also want to just note part of the reason why Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by as much as 3 million votes is because Bernie Sanders campaigned on her behalf, traveling like crazy to campaign on her behalf. Why would he go out of his way to do that if he didn't believe a woman could win as president of the United States?
I think people would say that that's
sense.
a generous assessment of what he did on her
they
behalf.
would.
But look, again, I don't think it's necessarily relevant, Anna. I don't think it's worth going back to that. All I'm saying is this. I don't care if he said to Elizabeth Warren, I don't think a woman can win. I think that you could argue that lots of different ways about why he said it, what he meant, what was the context. I don't really care. I really don't. What I do
Seems
care
like
about...
CNN cares a lot. I mean, you guys have been covering it
But here's what I care about. I
nonstop.
care about the truth. The best thing you guys have going as a party, no matter what part of it you are, is Donald Trump lies to you all the time. And we won't lie like that. That's your best argument, I think, person to person. This goes to that. Who's telling the truth? It matters, if only that reason, Anna. Is there not curiosity on your part because of that?
What I'm curious about is why there's absolutely no discussion about his record on what he's done and what he's actually said publicly when it comes to women in positions of power. I mean, back in the 1980s, it wasn't even a popular position to believe that women had a place in politics. But he was out there publicly talking about the importance of including women in politics and encouraging women to run for president. So again, look, we don't know what was said in that room because no one was in there other than Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. The only thing that we can do is a character assessment by looking at his record.
But both things
and
could be true,
what I've seen
Anna.
from his
He
record
could have
is
said it,
very
and
impressive.
he could have said these other things. And remember this, I'll tell you what, it's very rare that I hear people say a woman says that this happened, and we're saying we don't know what was said.
I think the
Senator
context,
Elizabeth Warren says she knows what
matters.
happened.
I think the context matters, and I find it strange that Elizabeth Warren hasn't quoted what he said. All she said is, I think a woman can win. He disagreed with me, but what's the context?
That's fine.
So, look,
I
if
just
we
think
don't
you
know
either
what
own
was
what
said
you
in
said
that
or you
room, I
don't.
think it's weird to keep talking
But
about
all right,
it.
fine. I agree with you both on that point. I want to ask about something else. Angela, when you looked at the stage last night, this aside, and I'm sure it wasn't part of your calculus in making the assessment to this question anyway, you see somebody up there that's definitely going to beat President Trump?
Chris, I have to be honest with you because that is my pledge as a person who has a platform on TV. And I have to be honest with you, that debate stage last night frightened me. It really did. There is a huge void with Kamala Harris out of the race. There is a huge void with Julian Castro out of the race. There's a huge void with Cory Booker out of the race. And I'm not just talking about ensuring that there is the appearance of diversity in a big tent by the Democratic Party. It is also the ways in which our politics are being discussed. And it's frightening. It is not that I am only going to lend my support to a candidate of color, but what I really have a problem with is how that debate stage was formulated. It is a huge party riff with the DNC. Why does that matter when you talk about the answer to your question? And that is simply this: if there is a rift in the party, I don't know that folks can come together to back one particular candidate, especially when you don't see a whole ton of strength, right? That worries me a great deal, and we have a lot of groundwork to do before this party can beat Donald Trump.
Do me a favor. I'm out of time on this one. Anna, let's do this. You know you're welcome on the show anyway. I love having you on. I love having your perspective on this. Angela, you know that about yourself as well. Let's see how it goes with this votes. We're going to have a couple of town halls.
All right, so there are a couple of things that I want to say here. So one of the things that I took issue with was the characterization of Hillary Clinton, quote, whooping Bernie Sanders. She won by something like 400 actual delegates, not counting bogus superdelegates. And at one point in the primary, they were actually nearly tied. That was like in April. So what that means essentially is once people knew who Bernie Sanders was, he was actually basically tied. And the uphill battle that he faced in running against Hillary Clinton was so massive that, and obviously he was cheated and rigged against, obviously, so the characterization that she whooped him is absolutely laughable. It's hilarious. What a joke that is. That should have been a walk in the park for Hillary Clinton, considering that the DNC rigged it in her favor, considering that everybody knew who she was and no one knew who Bernie was, and she had all the cash. She should have done that, but she didn't do that. Now, another funny point that I saw is Angela Rye, who's the guest, saying that, she's really worried about the debate stage that she saw. And I was too. And I was worried because of Elizabeth Warren's gender pandering, because to me it's an eerie sign of 2016, and I don't want that to repeat, because the result of the 2016 election was what? It was a victory for Donald Trump. And we don't want a victory for Donald Trump. So obviously we need to get away from that. But what was really hilarious is she was saying she's afraid of the debate stage because there was no Kamala Harris, no Julian Castro, and no Cory Booker, which is hilarious because all of those candidates were flailing in the wind. Like, nobody supported them. There's no hole because Cory Booker was at like 1 or 2 points, maybe 2. Julian was at the same. Like, I think he was even below 2. I think he was at like 1 something. And then Kamala was like sub 4 points at one point. I don't know. She's even close to 5 at that point, but she was somewhere around there. So there was nothing I could really do but laugh when I heard that statement. It's absolutely hilarious. Now, another thing that I took issue with, Ana Kasparian brings up the fact that Bernie Sanders hauled ass when it came to nominating Hillary Clinton and campaigning for Hillary Clinton. So if you recall, Hillary Clinton didn't even step foot in Wisconsin and that is a state that she actually ended up losing, okay? But Bernie Sanders actually went there. So you're talking about a guy who went there to a place, a crucial spot, by the way, that Hillary Clinton never went to. But, funny enough, let's just hear what Hillary Clinton has to say herself.
For them and vote for what they represent. You know, I really want to thank my friend Bernie Sanders for everything that he has done. I got to serve with Bernie. We were colleagues in the Senate. And I want to thank Bernie for everything he's done. He's crisscrossing our country, energizing people, getting folks off the sidelines and engaged in politics. And there's no question that his efforts are paying off. And what he said at the beginning of his remarks is absolutely true. My name may be on the ballot, but it is not about me. It's not about my opponent. It's not about Bernie. It's not about David or Deborah. It is about you and your lives. And
so as you see there, Hillary Clinton herself praising Bernie Sanders. Now, if the numbers are correct that I have seen, Bernie did something like 40 rallies in favor of Hillary Clinton, and I think Hillary did like 8 or something like that, or somewhere around 8 for Obama in 2008. So, but it's very well known that indeed the Bernie Sanders and his campaign were essentially, they were just trying to go as many places as they possibly could because they were trying to campaign for her. So he did absolutely do that. I think what they're probably going to say is, oh, you know, he went through a little bit into the convention, but he absolutely went hard when it came to that. But then afterwards, after she lost, you know, she's kind of fake, and it's hard to tell when she has a mask on and all that stuff. So that I guess was a mask moment, I guess, because afterwards she went on a whole book tour blaming Bernie Sanders for her loss. But no doubt Bernie Sanders did not make this quote about, you know, saying that Elizabeth Warren, or telling Elizabeth Warren that a woman can't win. I'm starting to be under the presumption or the belief that Elizabeth Warren is actually a pathological liar. And I'll go more into depth on that in another segment. But this is pretty cool. And again, I do want to give credit and a thank you to Chris Cuomo for bringing on progressives. It is really dope to see progressives on mainstream media.